Farmers are increasingly hearing more and more about organic matter. But what is organic matter truly all about? What is it used for? Is it really good for our soils? And if it is, how can I improve the organic matter content of my lands? And lastly, what relationship does this have with carbon, with climate change? I will provide you with all the details in this video. Organic matter essentially comprises of the remains of living organisms, including animals, plants, insects, and dead, decomposing matter. The more organic matter there is in soil, the darker the soil is. We can imagine the soil of a forest. In the forest is where the highest content of organic matter is found, and forest soils tend to be dark. But well, what is organic matter good for? By the way, it's basically made up of carbon, but we will talk later about the relationship between carbon, organic matter, and climate change. Organic matter serves multiple functions, and each of these functions has a positive impact on us. The more organic matter there is in a soil, the more life there is in a soil, the more microbiology there is in a soil, the more minerals there are in a soil. Organic matter contains many different minerals. Minerals are the nutrients that our plants will consume. The greater amount of organic matter, the greater amount of food for our plants. The greater amount of organic matter, the greater amount our soil can retain rainwater. We can envision organic matter as a sponge. When it rains, the water is captured and held in the sponge, specifically in the soil. The greater the amount of organic matter, the greater the water retention capacity of our soils, because for every additional 1% of organic matter our soils contain, they can retain up to 230,000 liters of water. The quantity of rainwater is 1,000 liters per hectare in this specific area of land. That is a substantial quantity of water and serves as a compelling reason to enhance the organic matter content of our soils. Organic matter provides structure to our soils. If there is a small amount of organic matter, our soils are unstructured. Ultimately, my intention is to express that the greater the amount of organic matter present in the soil, the higher the soil's fertility. And in fact, when we talk about good soil, about a good field, what we are ultimately saying is that it has a high content of organic matter. Because out of all these functions, there is one that is very important for our interests and for the interests of our crops. Organic matter is crucial as a nutrient store, containing the vital nutrients that our plants need for optimal growth and development. The greater the amount of organic matter, the larger the storage capacity, and consequently, there will be more nutrients available to nourish our plants and crops. The lower the amount of organic matter in our soils, the smaller the storage capacity will be, and consequently, there will be a reduced availability of nutrients for our crops to consume. In fact, this storage is related to organic matter and to the clay in soils, because organic matter and clay form something we call humic clay complex, which is a very strange, very complicated name, but in the end, it is the storage. The more organic matter and clay, the better the soil will be, because the storage capacity will be larger. But in recent years, we have done just the opposite. We have spent 50, 60, 70 years emptying the warehouse, depleting the organic matter in our soils. How? Well, by tilling, essentially, but also by utilizing chemical synthesis products to the point where we have extremely minimal amounts of organic matter in the majority of farms in the present-day agricultural landscape. For instance, in this field where I am presently, prior to implementing the modifications that I am about to inform you regarding, we had a level of approximately 0.60 of organic matter, 0.6% of organic matter. Today we are practically at 3% organic matter. Our soils are more alive, retain more water, contain more nutrients to feed our crops, are more structured, and ultimately are more fertile. In addition, organic matter, as I mentioned initially, is primarily composed of carbon. Therefore, the more organic matter there is in my soils, the more carbon there is in my soils, the less carbon there is in the atmosphere, which is a problem, as we well know. And the manner in which this carbon is transferred from the atmosphere to the Earth's surface is by means of plants, specifically through the process of photosynthesis. And here is one of the great secrets to enhance the organic matter content in our soils: having as many green plants as possible for as long as possible, conducting photosynthesis process. This is one of the strategies, but there are more, as we explain in other videos on our channel. In summary, I am interested in increasing the carbon content, the organic matter in my soils, and I am interested in stopping the destruction of the organic matter I have in my soils. We have to do both things at the same time, because if not, we are not going to improve our organic matter content. But first, we need to do another very basic thing, which is to determine the organic matter content in the soils that belong to me and are part of my agricultural land. And I'll tell you about this in another video, where I talk about how to measure the organic matter in my soils so that from here we can improve it as much as we want. What is a good organic matter content for soil? Well, we consider that starting from 3%, we begin to have a good soil, a fertile soil. 4%, 5%, 6%, 5 per 1 on 6%. It would be really ideal, although it's not easy to reach these amounts. The more quickly we commence enhancing the organic matter content of our soils, the more rapidly we will acquire high-quality soils. I'm going to show you the visual differences between a soil with less organic matter, soil with a greater amount of organic matter, in this specific case, from the same plot. Initially, we are going to collect some soil from the pathway of this estate, which is a location where we have not made any interventions at all in the management process. So these soils are comparable to how the entire plot of land looked approximately 6 years ago in the month of July, during that time period. The organic matter content is very low. In fact, only soil is visible. Nothing dark can be seen around here. And the organic matter content of these soils is approximately 0.6 in this particular plot of land. We have returned, and we are going to remove some of this leaf litter that has accumulated on the ground. At this location, you can witness the presence of life as evidenced by the existence of a small beetle in the surrounding area. But the most interesting thing, and we have already shown you this in other videos, this white stuff you see here, these are fungi. This is microbiology. This organic matter is undergoing decomposition to form additional stable organic matter. We set this aside temporarily and examine the soil beneath this area. We collect a sample of this soil and, as you can observe, the color is darker, which suggests a significantly greater concentration of organic matter in this location. Imagine if we compare the same soil with different management. After a period of 6 years, 0.6 of organic matter, which is close to 3 units of organic matter. These soils are more alive, these soils are more fertile, these soils retain more water, these soils are better, and that is the destination we aim to reach. We currently have both the original soil and the soil that exists now in our possession. I believe the distinction is significant. We are pleased to have initiated an alternative methodology, a regenerative approach, in order to enhance our soils. We would have liked to have started improving our soils a few years earlier, but this is something we can no longer change. Therefore, everything we do in the way we produce, in crops like vineyards, olives, dried fruits, sweet fruits, cereals, is actually based on achieving this, is actually based on increasing the carbon, the organic matter of our soils. And this is one of our main goals. And that leads us to produce better, to produce higher quality, to suffer less, to be more resilient. However, one of our primary objectives is to enhance the carbon content, the organic matter in our soils, which is equivalent to enhancing the fertility of our soils. Every time we plow, pass with a tractor, and with an implement, a plow or whatever it may be, a cultivator, we destroy organic matter, activate microbiology, and cause organic matter to oxidize more quickly. This has a positive side. Some of the nutrients that are stored within the organic matter are released and become available to plants. But a significant portion of this carbon that forms organic matter is converted into gas, specifically into CO, and returns to the air. And this is how, little by little, plowing after plowing, we have been extracting carbon, removing organic matter from our soils, making them poorer, and putting this carbon into the air. A few years ago, many years ago, when the soils were still quite fertile, they had a greater amount of organic matter. Every time we plowed, we destroyed a small amount of organic matter, but nutrients were released and we nourished the plants. As there was a lot, since the warehouse was very large, the problem was not very big. After many years of depleting our soils with modern farming techniques, our warehouse is very small. Therefore, every time we plow, it gets smaller, smaller, until one day the warehouse is no longer there, and there is no organic matter, no capacity to store nutrients, water, or carbon in our soils. Therefore, tilling less or ceasing to till is undoubtedly the best way to stop destroying the carbon, the organic matter in our soil. This is not an easy task, as it raises doubts in some crops and becomes even more complicated. However, here is the secret that holds the key to success. This is why we practice regenerative agriculture, not because we enjoy it, so to speak. We practice regenerative ag because it is one of the strategies that help us till less or not till at all and capture more carbon, therefore improving our soils, regenerating them. Essentially, each crop has its techniques. This can be done through crop rotations, no-till farming, cover crops, as in this case, with inputs of manure, compost, and organic amendments. However, the primary objective is not solely to cease the destruction of carbon in our soils, but also to establish vegetation covers capable of sequestering carbon and transferring it into the soil. And this is one of the keys to enhancing soils. Therefore, the objective is to attempt not to plow. And if this is highly challenging, which it frequently is, at the very least try to plow as minimally as possible. Here is one of the keys to carbon.